Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to a video on the channel. What we have for you today is our wildcard video as we look ahead to game week 6 in fantasy football. So if you are new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. We've got content like this, as well as keeping track of my own team and how that's doing, as well as some bonus content throughout the season, including chip advice and all of that good stuff. So let's get into the team. I'm going to start in goal as always, and I've gone with Kaminsky as my starting goalkeeper. Now we've got Ariola on the bench as well. Kaminsky's got Wolves, Everton, Burnley, and Forest in the next five. Ariola also has Sheffield United in game week 7 and Everton in game week 10. And I always think with the keepers this season, no one's getting clean sheets anyway, so you might as well go cheap. Turner's fixtures for Nottingham Forest get pretty tough, apart from obviously the Luton game in game week 9. So I feel like these two keepers do give a pretty good balance. The defence is as follows, and we've gone with double Newcastle here with Botman and Dan Burn. Newcastle's first clean sheet of the season in game week 5, and I reckon they'll get loads more, to be honest. I think rather than Trippier, I double up for these two. They've got Sheffield, Burnley, Palace, and Wolves in the next 5, and they're both nailed on for minutes. I've also gone with Estupinan based on the probability that I think you'll already have him. I think this is more of like it's not worth taking him out just to get him back in a few game weeks, probably game week 10, and you'd lose value as a result if you've had him in from the beginning. I think Newcastle's defence can cover him in the meantime, as well as having Udogi and Kabore on the bench. So for Udogi, I think his fixtures from game week 8 look great defensively. He's got Luton, Palace, Fulham and Wolves from game week 8 to 12. And Kabore has that double in game week 7. So if you do want to, place him in the team for game week 7, you've got that option to do so there as someone that's going to be playing two sets of 90 minutes. And that's hopefully, 4 points at least, but kind of depends on how many Luton concede, as well as that, against that Burnley team in that double. Into the midfield, and I'm sticking with Saka. He's still returning most game weeks, and I'm looking for a bit of consistency in this team. He's not too expensive, and he probably is the best Arsenal option. He's also the only Arsenal option in this wildcard team. I think that's really just because Arsenal's consistency is there, but then they're adding in the Champions League. You don't quite know how they're going to perform, but you still probably do want an Arsenal player in there. Defenders for clean sheets are not worth it, in my opinion. But I think you go with an attacker, and Saka's the one for me. I think kind of that's the same for Mbuemo as well. Like I wouldn't worry about the occasional blank. That'll happen to every single 6.5 to 7 million valued midfielder. His fixtures still look good up to game week 12, and like a Stupinan, you've probably already got him, so you're going to save some value. Here his value is 6.8. But if you've had him in from the beginning, you're saving zero point 0.3 million by just hanging on to him there. I've gone with Diaby, and I think now's the time to get ahead of Villa's fixtures. They really turn in game week 8. But for me, if you're wildcarding now, you're looking at getting in players for the medium to long term, and it's not just the next couple of game weeks. There is a fixture swing coming up in like game week 8 and 9. So if you are wanting to wildcard now, kind of like how do you attack the current fixtures, as well as plan ahead for those fixtures from game week 8 and 9 when you also don't have a wild card. He has got 4 attacking returns in 5 game weeks so far this season, and he is looking pretty good, especially going forward. And Villa are a good team as well, won 3 out of the 5 games so far. I've put Salah in here. I think he's incredibly consistent, and he's absolutely worth rearranging your finances for to get him in my opinion. I think really, if you've not got him in, probably the only way you would get him in without taking a points hit is through a wild card. So if you're taking the opportunity to get a wild card, I would absolutely recommend having Salah in. He's got 2 goals and 4 assists in his first 5 games, and now's the time probably to get a Liverpool attacker in. And I think by getting Salah in, you would also avoid a selection headache because you wouldn't be getting in any of the others, which, to be honest, can all get rotated. And every game week, you won't be surprised if it's Diaz, Gakpo, Jota, Nunes, any of those could be starting. Whereas Salah, you always know he's probably on for 90 minutes. The bench has Nathan Redmond on. Really, that's just because Burnley have that double game week in game week 7. He's kind of a player that's not really scored very well in fantasy league over his career, but he is also a sort of player that could get a random double goals or a goal and assist in a game. I think if you have players from Burnley and Luton, could be a bit of a shootout between them. I think it's worth having one of each, or maybe two from one and none from another. You wouldn't want your team covered in those players, really, because it's not a great, double game week involving those teams. But I would say in terms of Luton's fixtures, especially, the Everton and Burnley double up for the game week 7 is pretty much as good a fixtures as you'll get for any double. It's just a shame that maybe it's Luton that's having them. So up front, I've gone with Haaland. Obviously, do you need to say any more? He's got 7 goals in 5 games. You'll also be putting the captain's armband on him, no matter what. Hopefully, I just think even though he might get outscored by the occasional player every so often, the risk to reward just isn't there to go with anyone else. Ollie Watkins, I think, despite his data not looking great, he is in a Villa team playing really well, and he's still got 4 assists so far. I know one was for the penalty this game week, but surely it's a matter of time before he also adds goals. 15 goals last season. It's not like he's turned into a bad player. Villa are still scoring goals. Like if he wasn't scoring and Villa weren't scoring, then I'd be a bit more concerned. But I think with those Villa fixtures changing as well, I think he's someone that you can get in knowing that he will get attacking returns one way or another. And finishing off the team is Alvarez. He has ridiculously good minutes. For someone in Man City's team where you think they're always rotating, I think Alvarez, he's played 90 minutes in every single game week apart from one where he played 89. So you're umming and ahhing about who's going to start for Man City. He looks like the most nailed on player in the whole team. And he's also getting attacking returns as well. And he's still under 7 million. So he's not exactly going to be eating up a lot of your budget, even if he does get rotated out on the odd game week. So I put this into Fantasy Football's Hub Team Rater, shout out to them, and it still came up with 96%, which I was really pleased with because it has got a couple of Luton players, Burnley player, and a couple of players that have maybe not necessarily performed too consistently so far this season, such as the Newcastle defence. You maybe even have question marks over some of the midfielders on whether they're going to return every game week. So it was a nice confirmation of the team that we've got, and it's still under 100 million. And it's also important to bear in mind that, like we say, you did have Estupinan and Mbuemo from the start. You'll have had them in for 5 million and 6.5 million, depending on which one. And you'll therefore save a bit of money as well. So maybe there is the possibility to upgrade, someone on your bench to someone that you think might be a bit more consistent in terms of point scoring. So the strength for me is that it really attacks the upcoming fixtures. We're looking at that fixture swing in game week 8 mainly, but it still has some players in the team that are good in the meantime as well. I think it's reasonably well rounded, especially because we've got 2 premium attackers. Usually if you've got Salah and Haaland, it kind of decimates the rest of your team. So yeah, some players you maybe not going to be your first choice if you had unlimited transfer funds, but you've got to make sacrifices somewhere if you're going to want players like that in your team. That kind of leads us on to the weaknesses as well, because we do have a bit of a weak bench. But like we say, if you want someone like Salah, who is pretty much 3.5, maybe 4 million more expensive than the next midfielder, other than De Bruyne, who's injured, you're going to have to find the money somewhere. And that usually comes from your bench, will be the first place to find that from. And, there is still scope for even cheaper bench as well if you reduce Redmond down to a 4.5 midfielder. Consistency for me, whilst we have, players like Saka and Salah in the team, we said, Newcastle's defenders aren't super consistent so far. We're kind of banking on the clean sheets they're hopefully going to get. Ollie Watkins, maybe not as consistent as you want to, though he has got the assist. You're kind of hoping that he has the goals. So even though some players might be a bit risky, a bit of a chance, hopefully overall we would have the consistency that we are looking for in a team for the next few game weeks. So thank you very much for listening. Let me know if you are wildcard in this game week. Let me know if you think there is anyone that I've missed, anyone that you would swap out for someone else. Have I made some absolute nightmare picks in this team? And I will see you in the next one.